Disclaimer. This is an audiobook recording performed for entertainment purposes through fair use. I do not claim any of the text being read to be mine or written by me. This is Twisted by Laurie Halse Anderson. Warning. This story is not for children. It contains talks of abuse, violence, assault, both sexual and physical, drugs, alcohol, and suicidal ideation. Listener discretion is advised. 51. Bethany did not go to school on Tuesday. They said she did the whole team. Didn't matter the sport, the whole team. They said she posed. They said there was a secret website that showed every girl at the party on that bed. They said it was a hoax. They said the FBI were investigating. They said she was dead. They said she was engineered the whole thing to get herself into Playboy, or that she did it to get out of midterms. They said that she drank so much she fried her brain and was on life support. They said she left the party in an ambulance. They said she had it coming. They said her brother was going to kill whoever took the pictures. He wasn't in school on Tuesday either. I tried. I butted my way into conversations all day in the halls, the lunch line, and at the urinal. I wrote notes. I whispered during alienation lectures in English. I was yelled at in French. I told everyone that I drove Bethany home. I said that she was with me all night long. I said the whole thing had to be fake. By the end of the day, they were saying I did it. 52. They called me down first period on Wednesday. I didn't do it. I couldn't have. Wouldn't have. No way, no how. I kept telling myself that over and over as I walked to my doom to Mr. Hughes' office. Every door I passed was open. Thousands of eyes watched me. I did it, they said. I couldn't have done it. I wouldn't have. But I was the one who destroyed the school. No, I didn't. It was just some spray paint, and I did not take her picture. God, if I hadn't, I would have showed it to anybody. I never put it on the net. I mean, I thought about her looking like that, lying like that. But no, I did not take a picture, and I didn't destroy the school either. It was just spray paint. Mr. Hughes' mouth moved, chewed through the air in the seriousness of the situation. I nodded when I was supposed to and shook my head when it seemed like the right thing to do. No, I didn't know anything. Not about this. No, sir. Not me. Not a thing. I could not have done it, sir. I did not hurt Bethany. I knew that. But nobody else did. 53. They said I was taken out of school in handcuffs again, but that should show you that they don't know squat. I went home, normal time, in Yoda's car. Yoda spent the whole ride BSing me about 100 reasons why nobody thought I pornographied the girl of my dreams. The cop showed up at 8:30 that night, just as Dad was about to eat his reheated leftover takeout enchiladas. I was watching television with Mom. Hannah was the one who sprinted to answer the doorbell. "The police are here," she said. "What?" Mom asked. I looked in the kitchen. Dad was at the table, his briefcase open on the chair next to him. He had some papers in one hand and a fork full of enchilada in the other. He dropped the fork. "Don't let him in," he said. "What's going on?" Mom asked. Dad pushed away from the table and went to the door. "Everybody stay here." Hannah sat down on the couch without looking at me. I studied the rug. If I could tear through it with my bare hands, then rip the wood underneath, I could squeeze through the hole in the floor, drop down to the basement, wiggle out of one of the tiny basement windows, maybe, and take off before the cops even got inside. Dad walked back in. "Hannah, go upstairs. Linda, Tyler, come with me." We sat in the living room, a room in which no living was ever done except for dusting the piano, vacuuming the lemon-colored carpet, and entertaining people we didn't like. Police officers, for example. Officer Adams walked like his feet hurt. He was Dad's age, but he still had hair. He was taller than Dad, but looked underfed and tired. Mr. Benson, my probation officer, was with him. The look he gave me when he walked in made me want to dig a hole through the floor again. Mom smiled, like the kind you see on a mummy when the skin has shrunk so far you see the teeth and the gums. She's having a hard time speaking. "Have a seat, gentlemen," Dad said. Adams and Benson sat in the white stuffed chairs. Mom and Dad sat on the couch under the framed photo of the starry night. I was on the piano bench. Hannah was sitting on the stairs, just high enough that Mom and Dad couldn't see her. Dad opened his mouth, but Officer Adams jumped in first. "I know you folks must be nervous." Mom squeaked. Dad put his hand on top of hers and patted it. "But," Adams continued, "we're just looking for information." That was cop speak for, "We have all the information we need to send your son away to federal penitentiary for 20 years, but we'll save the taxpayers a lot of money if we could squeeze a confession out of him right now." "Of course," Dad said. "We're investigating an incident that took place at a party Friday night. A young woman, apparently under the influence of alcohol and/or drugs, was stripped naked and photographed. Those pictures were then posted to the internet." Mom tried to squeak again, but no sound came out. "That's a terrible thing," Dad said. "But I failed to see the connection to our family. Tyler wasn't at any party. He's still under curfew imposed by the judge in May." Mr. Benson's eyes darted to me. I wonder if it would be possible to crawl into the piano and close the lid. Maybe the wires would cut me into hundreds of pieces and I would bleed out before anyone noticed. Adams nodded. "Well, sir, we're at the beginning of this investigation, but it's clear that your son was indeed at the party. According to..." He paused and flipped through the pages of his notebook. "According to 7 witnesses. Your daughter Hannah was there too." The sound of clomping feet running up the stairs, down the hall, and then slamming the door. "Ah," Dad said. Adams turned to me. "You were at the party, right, Tyler?" I nodded. "And by that nod, you mean yes?" "Yes, sir." He asked a bunch of boring questions. How much did I drink? I didn't think one sip counted. How did I hear about the party? Everyone knew about it. How much did I smoke? Nothing. How many people were there? Lost count. How did I get there? Walked. You walked? Mr. Benson interrupted. Yes, sir. We don't let him drive anymore, Mom explained. Adams cleared his throat and turned a page in his notebook. In which room did you take photographs? I didn't take any pictures, I said. Okay, in which room did you have sex with Bethany Milbury? Crap. We didn't have sex. Bethany Milbury? Dad roared. Is that who we're talking about here? Christ almighty, Tyler. What were you thinking? Please, Mr. Miller, Benson said. Sit down. Would you like a minute to compose yourself? Adams asked. No, barked Dad. Wisps of smoke trailed out of his nose and his mouth as he sat. Go on. Did you go into the bedroom with Bethany? The sound of metal doors locking. Yes. Were you alone in the room with her? Older inmates. Big inmates. With gang tattoos. Yes. Was she drunk? She had a beer in her hand. I got there late. I don't know how much she had to drink. What happened when the two of you were alone in the bedroom? I looked down. The laces of my sneakers were frayed. We talked, mostly. I was at the party because she invited me. I thought she liked me. So we talked. Adams was staring at me. What kind of physical contact did you have with her? My mother was very still. Tyler, Adams repeated. Not much. She came on to me. We kissed. She wanted to do more, but I didn't. I mean, no, I did, but I didn't. Not like that, Not there. Not when she was drunk. Adams asked. Yeah, drunk. So I blew her off, and she got mad. She said some bitchy things and took off. I didn't see her until the party ended. I explained where I found her and how she was dressed. Mom stopped looking at me. Dad didn't. Adams finished writing and spent a long minute reviewing his notes. How long have you been stalking her? What? I looked up. I haven't been stalking her. I was trying to protect her. The only reason I stayed was to keep an eye on her because everyone was so trashed. If you were keeping an eye on her, Benson interrupted, then how did those photos get taken? Adams waved him off. Were you responsible for a serious accident on August the 28th, during which Bethany suffered a severe laceration to the bottom of her foot, which necessitated a trip to the hospital and multiple stitches? It was an accident! My voice was panicked. I had no control over it. Chip shoved me. I couldn't help it. Did you verbally harass her at school on Monday afternoon? Who told you that? That's enough, Tyler, Dad said. Settle down. Benson closed his eyes and shook his head. Are you going to arrest my son? Dad asked. Not tonight, Adam said. But when we do, he's looking at felony charges that would include lewd behavior, forcible touching, sexual harassment, sexual misconduct, and all kinds of voyeurism charges. Oh, and possibly kidnapping. Kidnapping? I couldn't even get the word out. Okay, good job, Dad said. You've terrified him. Congratulations. We both know you can lie about whatever you want to right now, but let's cut to it. What evidence do you have? We've talked to a number of students. Evidence, Dad said slowly. His yellow dragon eyes flashed at Adams. Aside from rumors spread by drunken morons, what makes you believe my son did anything besides break curfew? Did Bethany accuse Tyler? Mom said. Was she? Adams thought for a moment before he answered. There's no medical evidence that she's ever had intercourse, and she claims her memory of the incident is spotty. We're starting with the photographs. It hit me. I don't have a camera, I said. How could I take photos of her without a camera? We believe the photographs were taken with a camera phone, Adam said. Tyler doesn't have a phone, Mom said. He doesn't? Adams asked. We took it away when the first thing happened, Mom explained. He could have used anyone's phone, Adams said. We're investigating the possibility of co-conspirators. Dad interrupted. But the point is, you have no evidence. I want to see this website. It's been taken down, Mr. Miller. It was up for approximately 4 hours. So, how do you know that a crime was even committed? Numerous students printed the images. Ouch. We'd like to borrow Tyler's computer, Adam said. Why? I asked. Our experts will be able to tell if your computer was used to upload, store, or download the images. I didn't. Hannah showed me the website last night. You'll see that in my browser history, but I didn't do it. My computer will prove it, so yeah, take it. How do we know you won't set him up? Dad asked. What if you guys think that he's the easiest kid to nail for this, and you doctor his computer to prove it? I can come back with a warrant, Adam said. This is not happening. My dad is not going toe-to-toe with a cop, defending me like he cares. I am not a suspect. Nobody did anything criminal to Bethany. In fact, the party never even happened. I'll take you to his room, Dad said. I stayed on the bench while Dad supervised the removal of my computer. Mr. Benson carried it, component by component, to the squad car while Adams interviewed Hannah in the other room, with Mom standing guard. Hannah was bawling. She always cried when she got caught. As Adams and Benson pulled out of the driveway, Dad watched through the living room curtains. I hadn't moved. Mom was still upstairs with Hannah, who had cranked it into full-blown wailing. I knew it was coming. Dad snapped the curtain shut. He stood in the middle of the lemon-yellow carpet,
opened his jaw and sprayed fire everywhere. I was a loser, a liar, a jerk, an idiot, a disgrace, and an embarrassment. I had cost the family a fortune in lawyer fees already. I had ruined the family's good name. My father could barely hold his head up at work. And now this. Breathe. Breathe. This is the last straw, Tyler. Bryce Milbury will fire me and blacken my name. I've worked 27 years to get where I am, and you just blew it all to hell because you had a hard-on for some drunken little bitch. Don't call her that, I said. Look at me when I'm talking to you. I never thought I'd say this, but I wish you took drugs. If you were high, I could blame it on that. But no, you screw up just for the joy of it. I tuned out again. He kept at it for another hour or so, flapping his wings and tearing through the sky on his talons. He was done with me. Done. If they arrested me, he'd kick me out of the house. He blamed me for Mom's migraine and his blood pressure. He blamed me for my bad grades, my bad attitude, and my bad haircut. I was also responsible for gas prices, global warming, and the national debt. My butt fell asleep. That piano bench was hard. No wonder Hannah and I quit lessons when we were little. As he paced back and forth, I studied the family Christmas photos behind him and the spots in the wallpaper that seemed to separate. The furnace kicked on, blowing that faintly moldy smell across the vacuum-clean-lined edges of the lemon yellow carpet, across the strings inside the piano, across the laces of my sneakers. Dad's nose twitched. He shuddered once, then shouted, "Go to your room!" I stopped in the upstairs bathroom, popped 4 ibuprofen, and chugged half a bottle of NyQuil. Then I went to bed like the bad little boy I was. 54. The sound of my parents yelling at each other woke me up at 1:30. It was an all-star cage match, out-of-control dad versus gin and tonica monster. Hannah slipped into my room. I can't sleep. I wonder why, I said. It had been a long time, but we both knew the routine. I pulled out the sleeping bag from the top shelf of my closet. Hannah crawled into my bed. She had her old Raggedy Ann with her. That's the kind of thing brothers don't tell about sisters. I tucked the covers under her chin. Thanks, Tyler, she said. Yeah. I unrolled the sleeping bag on the floor and got in it. Mom and Dad were still downstairs, their vocal cords made of leather. After a while, it faded back into the green haze of the NyQuil, thunder booming on the other side of the hill. Ty? What? This is gonna get better, right? Right, I lied. Ty, I'm trying to go to sleep, Hannah. I know you didn't do it. I rolled over. Thanks. 55. All that crap I had endured up until then, the face flushes in middle school, the wedgies, the names being ignored, mocked, teased, spit on, and even hurt by Bethany Milbury. That stuff was all kindergarten. This was big league. Every step in the crowded hall came with a shove, a trip, a couple of jabs to the kidneys. By lunchtime, my notebook was shredded, my wallet had been stolen, and my watch was in a million pieces in the math wing. A couple of teachers saw it. They saw it, and they saw nothing. I thought about walking out the front door. Just walking, but that would have been a giant admission of guilt, and I was still stupid enough to think it mattered. Hannah looked me over as I sat down in the cafeteria. That bad, huh? Worse. You? I'm okay. Her eyes were still swollen from crying and arguing with Mom the night before. Don't worry, Yoda said. They'll figure out who did it, and everybody'll chill. Thank you for lying, I said. I feel better now. And Bethany will figure out that you're not an evil, perverted stalker, and you guys can hook up again. Are you high? I asked him. I'm toast. Done. Fini. Hannah dipped a carrot stick in a cup of ranch. Leave Calvin alone. He's in shock. He can't believe Mom grounded me until graduation. I'm not even allowed to call her, Yoda said. Hannah laid her head on his shoulder. We'll figure something out. Don't worry, I said. Sneaking out to a party is nothing like committing a dozen felonies on the boss's daughter. If I get arrested, they'll forget all about grounding you. The police won't arrest you because you didn't do it. She bit the carrot. Stop being so negative. I'm going to be arrested, tried, convicted for something I didn't do. Sent to jail, where I will become the girlfriend of a large, scary man, and where I will develop an addiction. I don't know, sniffing bleach or something? Sniffing bleach will kill you, Yoda pointed out. I picked up the fork on Hannah's tray. Then sign me up. Bethany Milbury will never look at me again. In fact, she'll forget I even existed. Hannah let out a long, dramatic sigh. Yoda and I waited. Okay, she started. I hate to be the one to break it to you, but my life is over? I know. Thanks. No, listen. This Bethany thing, you never really had a chance. What are you talking about? She likes me. Well, liked. Past tense. It wouldn't have worked, Hannah explained. I tried to stab the fork into the table. What's that supposed to mean? Yoda shook his head a little, trying to get her to back down. She ignored him. Bethany is popular, Ty. She said it carefully, as if I had never heard the concept. What's your point? You aren't? Yoda tried a diversion. I never understood what makes the popular kids popular. It must be a hive activity, a neurochemical message that all the hive members receive, but nobody understands. We're not bees, I pointed out. It's not that complicated, Hannah said. The popular kids aren't really popular. They're obnoxious, loud, good-looking, and rich. Nobody likes them, but they rule the place. And everyone wants to be them, Yoda pointed out. Well, duh. When a non-popular kid tries to cross that line like Ty, bad things happen. You can't mate a dog with a racehorse. Give me that fork before you hurt yourself. They talked about nothing and cuddled for the rest of the period. I drew a small blue demon on my hand with a pen. Somebody poured milk down my back when we were leaving. 56. Bethany turned up for school for the first time on Friday. She was wearing her black turtleneck, tight black jeans, and new sneakers. She looked like she hadn't eaten in a month, and her eyes were swollen under the makeup. They said her parents were forcing her to go to school as punishment for going to the Rawson party. Mr. Hughes met me at the front door and informed me that, until matters were resolved, I'd be spending homeroom in the main office. It would be best for everyone, he said. I'm sure you understand. Chip Milbury passed me in the hall on the way to first period. He pointed to his eye, then at me. Great. Now Chip was watching. My life was complete. Mr. Salvador attacked me in English. What was Dr. Faustus tempted with, Tyler? He asked. He was perched on the corner of his desk, smiling like he gave a damn. I don't know. What was the author Marlowe trying to tell us? To pay attention in English class? A few people giggled. Salvatore stand up. Did you read last night's assignment? Why was he always doing that? Say yes, and I'd be hammered again. Say no, and the same thing would happen. I shrugged. Did anyone read last night's assignment? Everyone who was not me raised their hand. Someone please summarize Dr. Faustus for me. He said. As a girl sitting by the window explained, Mr. Salvatore took out a book from his desk, opened it, and set it on my table. He patted me on the shoulder twice, then went to the board where he started scribbling. I tried to read, but the letters just kept moving around. I stopped at my locker after English. Mistake. Something accidentally hit me on the right side of the head. It felt like the bumper of a pickup truck. Nobody saw anything. The nurse gave me ice and called Mr. Hughes. An hour later, he joined me in the nurse's office and told me that I'd be spending the rest of the day in study hall. He had already talked to my parents. They'd be coming in for a meeting to the school on Monday. If I hadn't been so tired, I might have said something. I went to the study hall room and laid my head down on my books. A trickle of water leaked from the ice bag and escaped down the back of my neck. As the day wore on, the room filled with bees and emptied, first buzzing, then silence, buzzing, silence, as members of the hive flew through their rigid, patterned dances. The sound of their beating wings filled my mind and smothered it. When I finally woke up, the room was empty, except for Joe, the janitor, leaning his mop up against the wall and giving me the evil eye. "Hey," he said. "Did I miss the bell?" "Did you do what they said you did?" he asked. "No." He examined the end of his mop for splinters. "I didn't think so," he said finally. "Keep your chin up." I laid my head back down until I heard him leave the room. 57. After dinner that night, we drove to the photography studio for our annual Christmas photo. We did not talk in the car. Mr. Gunnarsson had a giant mirror on one of his studio walls. Mom dug out a brush from her purse and handed it to me without a word. After I brushed my hair, she handed me brown felt antlers. I put them on. Mom and Hannah wore antlers too, along with the stone reindeer sweaters. I wore a red sweater. Dad was in his suit. He refused to wear antlers or even a Santa hat. He held the prop, an empty box covered with red and green wrapping paper, while sitting in the leather armchair in front of the fake fireplace. A plastic tree poked out of the back of the shot. We were all gathered around Dad, Mom on his right, Hannah to his left, me behind the chair. "No, no, no," Gunnarsson scolded me. "Your head is far too far off the ground. I can't get it in frame. Let's try something else." 4 something else's later, we found the right combination. Mom perched lightly on the arm of the chair, Hannah hanging over the back, and me down on one knee to the left, like someone had been injured in a soccer game. Dad had the empty present in his lap. "Very festive," Gunnarsson said, clicking away. "Say peace." "That's it. Big smile. Peace." 58. Dad woke me up at 7 o'clock Saturday morning. "No sleeping in," he said. "I have chores for you." It didn't take me too long to climb the ladder and step onto the roof. I planted my butt on the shingles and inched my way up to the peak. An ugly-looking cloud bank was building in the west. The air smelled like winter. The mail truck was coming down the street, dodging potholes. Our neighbors on the other side, we never talked to them, had an above-ground pool half filled with stagnant water. The sidewalk in front of our house had more cracks than I remembered. I shuffled my boots back and forth on a loose shingle. I studied the Christmas lights that I was supposed to replace. Mom had tried to yank them down, but they wouldn't budge. From up here, the problem was obvious. After Dad looped the wires around nails that he had driven into the roof, he had bent the nails over so that the lights wouldn't blow off in the strong wind, which was why he couldn't take them down himself. Good idea, bad execution, difficult cleanup job. Story of my life. And I had forgotten to bring a pair of pliers or a claw hammer. Bad idea, no preparation, giant mess. Story of my life. Dad came out of the house, shielding his eyes from the sun, looked up at me. "How long will this take? I need you to help me down here." "I need a pair of pliers." "You didn't bring them up with you?" "Hold on." It only took him a second to find them, and he was back out of the garage. He stood below me. "Catch." "No, wait." The pliers bounced off the roof, hit the gutter, and dropped back down to the ground. "I'll come down. I have to go to the bathroom anyway." No, you stay put. I'll bring them up." Dad tucked the pliers in his back pocket, pushed up his sleeves, and blew out a sharp breath of air as he put his hands on the rung above his head. "You want me to hold it?" I asked. "I'm fine." He climbed 5 feet off the ground, grabbed the pliers, and held them up. "If you lean down, you should be able to reach them." I stretched on my stomach, toes dug in for grip, but he was far too far. "You have to come up a couple more rungs at least, Dad. Or I can come down the ladder." He frowned. but he put the pliers in his back pocket and climbed, one shaky step after the next. "Lean your weight toward the house," I suggested. He didn't say anything, but he leaned and climbed 3 more rungs until his head popped over the edge of the roof. He was sweating, coating his upper lip like he had just ran a 400. "Didn't think I could do it, did you?" He held on to the ladder with a death grip, reached into his pocket in slow motion, and handed me the pliers. "Thanks," I said. "Don't mention it." He glanced around. "I forgot how nice the view was from up here. A man should climb on his roof more often." "Yeah." "Indeed." He nodded like we were having an everyday conversation. Just 2 regular guys, 20 feet in the air. "It's a nice view." He glanced down, and then leaned closer to the ladder. "Do you need something?" I asked. He cleared his throat. "Your mother, I'm supposed to talk to you. She thinks I was too hard on you the other night, after the police left." I scratched at a spot of rust on the pliers. I was upset. We were all upset. That's putting it mildly. "About Bethany," he started. "You could have taken advantage of this situation." "Totally." "Why didn't you?" I grabbed the nail with a plier and twisted it, freeing the strand of Christmas lights. Would have been wrong. The wind blew through the naked branches on the maple tree, tangled in strands of Dad's comb over and teased them up straight. He smelled a little, that old guy smell of dirty socks and underwear sweat. He had a black smudge under his eye. "I'm proud of you for that, Tyler," he said. "I just wish you could have applied that thinking to the entire incident." I resisted the temptation to shove the ladder away from the house and send him plunging to the ground. He eyed the Christmas lights. "How long will this take?" 20 minutes, tops. But I do need a pit stop first. Drank a lot of juice at breakfast." He didn't move. Dad? You have to go down first," I said, "because you're on the ladder." "Right." I waited. "Is something wrong?" I asked. He peered at me, then at the ground again, then at his hands, which were gripping the ladder so tightly the tendons and veins looked like they had been carved out of a block of granite. "I am experiencing vertigo." "What does that mean?" "I'm dizzy." "Oh, man. Okay, well, I'll yell for Mom. She can hold the bottom of the ladder for you." His eyes widened. "Don't you dare. I'll be fine." It took me 15 minutes to coax him down the ladder, 1 rung at a time. "Move your foot, Dad." "No, a little to the left." "Feel it? Right there. Now move your hand." "You have to let go of the ladder first." "Right, that's good." "No, don't look at the ground. It's still down there." "Okay, next step." Once down, he stood on the lawn and watched me descend, sweat trickling off his scalp. Once I was on the ground, he said, "Thank you, son." Officer Adams interviewed me a second time on Sunday. The interview was only informational, he said. A friendly discussion. We sat in the living room with my parents on the couch, like they had forgotten their lines. He asked the same questions. I gave the same answers. I was beginning to think I needed a lawyer, but Dad said no. It would be an admission of guilt. He could handle it. Mom gave Dad a look like she was ready to rip out his throat with her teeth. 59. I stayed in Yoda's car during homeroom on Monday and signed in 10 minutes after calc began. The call for me to go to Mr. Hughes' office came about a half hour into gym class, second period. Pissed me off. We were doing a personal fitness unit. Most of the girls were yogaing and gossiping. Some guys were jogging laps. I had a corner all to myself where I alternated between sets of push-ups, sit-ups, and squats. The back of my shirt was dark with sweat, and the spot on my abs was growing. I asked if I had time to change my clothes. The teacher said no. The secretary waved me in with a nod of her head. She and I were going to be on a first-name basis soon. I opened the door. Mr. Hughes looked up from his desk without smiling. So did my parents, sitting directly across from him in nice chairs. "Hi," I said. "Have a seat," Mr. Hughes said. "I was just telling your father how grateful I am that they took their personal time to come and discuss this situation." "Of course," Dad said. Mom had a yellow pad on her lap with a pen in her right hand. I sat in a hard plastic chair under the clock. Mr. Hughes started talking and blew a lot of smoke out of his butt, but what it boiled down to was this. He didn't know what to do with me. "But he's not suspended," Dad said. "No," Mr. Hughes admitted. "And you let him go to class this morning," Mom said. "Obviously." "That was something of an oversight," Mr. Hughes said. "Tyler was supposed to report to the office when he arrived." "So I'm in trouble for going to class?" I asked. Mr. Hughes straightened his blotter. "I didn't say that. This is an unusual circumstance, one that, frankly, our handbook doesn't cover." Mom leaned forward. "I must admit I'm a little confused." Dad's eyes rolled up to heaven for just a fraction. "Has Tyler broken any rules this semester?" she continued. "No," Mr. Hughes admitted. "And Officer Adams has explained that he's not been arrested." "But the police are talking to him," Mr. Hughes said. "The police are talking to a lot of kids," Dad said. "Why is Tyler the only one being singled out?" "Because Tyler's the one we're worried about. I'm told there were several incidences last week, not just what happened on Friday. We want to protect him from students who may not understand the concept of innocent until proven guilty." Mom nodded, scribbling on a pad as fast as I've ever seen anyone write. "How will he keep up with his classes if you stuff him in isolation?" Dad asked. "This semester is critical to his chances of getting into the right school." "His teachers have agreed to tutor him in their free period and provide him with class notes, whatever he needs. We don't anticipate this will go on too long. A few days, maybe a week." Mom raised her hand a little. "And why is it that he can't stay home exactly?" Mr. Hughes relaxed, now that it was clear that my parents weren't going to attack him. "Keeping him home would have to be considered a suspension. We don't have the grounds for that. This compromise works best for everyone concerned." Dad glanced at the clock. Mom finished writing the last words Mr. Hughes said, then raised her finger and said, "Hold on a sec." And she drew a card out of her purse. She stood slightly and passed it on the desk to Mr. Hughes. He read it with a frown. "That's the name of my lawyer," Mom explained. "You called Pete Satterfield?" Dad asked. "I told you I could handle this." Mom smiled. "I didn't call Pete. That's from Hewson, Hilligan, and Keene. My lawyers." "Since when do you have lawyers?" Mom ignored the question. "I spoke with Jill Hewson this morning. She said to tell you that if you isolate Tyler and single him out for doing nothing wrong, then you should notify the school's district attorney that we will be filing for unlawfully denying him his education." Dad threw his hands in the air. "For Christ's sake, Linda, they're trying to help him. Do you want him beat up every day?" "Do you want our kid in a school that would allow that to happen?" she responded. She pointed at Hughes. "If you do this, you're admitting that you don't have control over your own students. How is that going to look in the newspaper?" "Now wait just a minute." Mr. Hughes' face was turning red. "You're way off base," Dad said. "Excuse me." Mom wasn't smiling anymore. "My son has done nothing wrong." "Hello?" I demanded. "Do I get an opinion here?" They all turned to me. "Of course you do," Mom said. Mr. Hughes nodded. "I don't mind it," I said. "If they want to put me in study hall or just take me out of class until this all dies down, I'm cool with it." "Are you sure?" Mom asked. "Yeah. This wouldn't be an excuse for you to slack off," Dad warned. "Oh, God," Mom sighed. "No, it's okay. Mr. Hughes is right. Yeah, I said that. It's not worth the aggravation. And this is hard enough on Bethany. Maybe it'll be easier if I'm not around." Dad smiled slightly at Mom. I don't want to cause trouble, I finished. Well then, Mr. Hughes said. Are you sure? Mom repeated. Are you 100% sure that this is what you want? I shifted in my chair, pulling my sticky, sweaty legs off the plastic. Yeah. Dad glanced at the clock. Mom and Dad left in separate cars. Mr. Hughes gave me some time to go back and change my clothes and get my stuff out of my locker. My new room was just down the hall from administration. I had a table, 3 chairs, an empty bookshelf, a trash can, and a door with a window on it. They used it for tutoring or as a holding cell, depending on the situation. I opened my English textbook to the fastest play. It was written in 1588. Not marching in the fields, Thasramir, where Mars did mate the warlike Carthaginians, nor sporting the dalliance of love, in courts of kings, where state is overturned. Oh yeah, that made sense. The bell rang, the halls filled, then emptied. A few curious faces stared in at me. I could hear the whispers through the halls. They were saying I was part of a network of internet perverts. They were saying I had a trench coat. They were saying I was heavily medicated. They were saying that the cops were looking into a couple of other guys too. But they were still saying I was a piece of garbage.
60. Tuesday, I sat at my chair and table in my cell. Day 2 of limbo. In school, but not in school. Suspended, but not really. Every time the bell rang, kids would pass in the hall and slap and kick my door. Every time it happened, I jumped. I had been here before, stuck in between 2 worlds. Last spring, I was stuck in court limbo while the judge and the DA and Hughes threw dice to decide my fate. I'd spent weeks in Bethany limbo, wondering if she liked me. Come to think of it, all of high school had been limbo, and middle school too. Just as soon as my zits popped, wham! Dropped Tyler Miller in limbo. Changed the rules daily so he never knows how to act or talk or dress. Nail him with the longest, slowest puberty of mankind. Let's see how much damage one dumb jerk will put up with before he snaps. That sounds like a fun game, doesn't it? I translated 10 pages of La Estranger for French. That was absurd. I read the Constitution too. Tried to translate that into French. That was ridiculous. Yoda didn't kick my door. He knocked politely after the last bell rang, then opened it and stuck his head in. You want to go to the mall? With you and Hannah? No thanks. She is weightlifting. And so you want to go to the mall alone? You never go to the mall alone. That's why I'm asking you. Come on. I need moral support. I have to get a job. He needed a job because my sister was expensive. She was still grounded, so he couldn't take her anyplace. Instead, he bought her presents. Lots of presents. His bank account was almost tapped out. Yoda drove. He never shut up, going on and on about the road trip he was going to take with his parents and looking at colleges. The mall looked like one of my mother's Christmas fantasies on steroids. The constant caroling gave me a headache stab at my brainstem with a collection of stainless steel kitchen knives, $49.95 on sale. Yoda collected applications from 2 department stores, a shoe store, the bookstore, and the kiosk that sold sausage and orange cheese. I thought the people who handed him the applications were totally blowing him off, but he didn't think so. He was the polite job candidate with copies of his transcript, 4 statements of personal reference, and 2 recommendations from teachers. I paged through one of his packets as we walked away from the kiosk. Why didn't you ask Mr. Pirelli for a reference? Because he hates me because of the equipment I broke. No, he doesn't. I flipped to page 3 as we stepped off the escalator. Nobody cares that you were the freshman library attendant. Yes, they do, he said. It shows initiative. You should try it sometime. What's that supposed to mean? It means I'm hungry. Taco Bell or King Walk. He bought 4 burritos with extra hot sauce. I bought something that had cheese in it. No hot sauce. My stomach was already on fire. My headache hovered around terrorist threat intensity. Can we go? I asked after he finished the second burrito. I'm not done yet. You could eat it in the car. Or I could eat it here. He unwrapped another one. What's wrong? That is the funniest question you've ever asked me. What's wrong? I'll have to remember that. You know what I mean. Things are crappy, yeah, but I was asking, is there anything crappier than the rest? His phone rang. It was Hannah, so I ceased to exist for him. I poured all the hot sauce packets onto my tray and sprinkled pepper in it. Yoda laughed on the phone. I studied the beams that arched high over the food court. A lost balloon floated and bounced between them. A kid wailed. I could see myself hanging from the rope tied to the beams, tongue sticking out, legs dangling in the air. But it would be hard to be up there without anyone noticing. Hey, Yoda waved his phone an inch from my face. Wake up. You want to talk to your sister? No. The kid pointed to his balloon, stomping his feet and crying louder. He had snotty nose and was stuffed into his winter jacket. His mother was focused on cramming as much pizza in her mouth as was humanly possible. The red balloon bounced along the ceiling. Come on, Yoda whined. He shoved his phone in my face again. Talk to her. She'll be mad at me. I smacked the phone out of his hand. It hit the floor and skittered across to the wall. The battery popped off. Yoda didn't move. I stooped up, walked over, and picked up the 2 pieces. I brought them back to the table, replaced the battery, and turned the phone back on. I didn't look at it when I handed it back to him. Still works, I said. Sorry. He rubbed a scratch on the cover of the phone with his thumb. Well, why'd you do that? The kid alternated between wailing and sobbing. I don't know, I said. I'm just trying to help. Yeah, well, don't. It just makes it worse. Everyone's acting like everything's normal. You laugh on the phone, handing out your resumes. What do you want me to do? Erase the last 10 days of my life. Impossible, that is. I stood up. The boy was punching his mother's leg and screaming so loud I thought the glass of the mall would shatter. Can't you shut that kid up? I hollered. Everyone in the food court stopped talking and stared at me. A new song came on the loudspeaker, Silent Night. Yoda put his last burrito in his bag and picked up the tray. What are you doing? We're going home. Make up your mind. You want to stay? You want to go? What's it going to be? He carried the tray to the trash can, pushed the paper in it, wiped the hot sauce mess up with a napkin, and put the tray on top. He walked back to my side at the table. People had stopped staring. Now they were whispering to each other. I'm trying to help you, Yoda said quietly. You're trying to stay on my good side so you can get in my sister's pants. He took a deep breath. He flipped open his cell phone, brushed off some dust that wasn't there, then closed it and stuck it back into his pocket. At some point, you're going to feel like a real asshole for saying that to me, he said. When that happens, you give me a call. He disappeared down the escalator. That stupid kid finally stopped crying.